remarks, I would like for us to dive into the discussion for the day, the panel discussion. I've already taken the keynote speech remarks. I would like for us to dive into the discussion for the day, the panel discussion. And here we're going to hear from two professionals, two distinguished professionals who bring unique perspective on social media law. So allow me now to introduce our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Eno Roberts, who is an author of Social Media Law. Mr. Roberts is a distinguished Nigerian lawyer specializing in information technology and social media law. He's called to the Nigerian bar. He provides legal consultation, drafting services for international organizations on issues like cloud clauses, app development, and social media agreements. Ebi has authored numerous papers on digital assets, social media content law, cyberspace law, and digital rights. And he has presented at prestigious conferences such as Bileta and SLSA. He's also a speculative fiction writer and a member of various professional bodies, including the Nigerian Bar Association, of course, and the British Science Fiction Writers Association. Mr. Ebi's scholarly work is published in high-ranking journals and widely cited on academic platforms. He holds key advisory roles in several organizations and is also a fellow of the World Institute of Peace, for Peace, rather. This is a very rich biography. Our second panelist is no other but Kindness Dogara Arung. She is the founder of Bees Reg. Kindness Dogara Arung is a business and intellectual property lawyer, and she educates young Nigerian entrepreneurs and founders on the importance of creating legal protection strategies for their brands. Her main focus is creating awareness among Nigerian founders and creators of the existence and availability of legal protection for their brands and creative innovation, whilst rendering her professional services to ensure they gain access to these protections. She has done this and more in the past 5 years through the use of social media. So each of the panelists will share their insights, followed by question and answer sessions, where during that session, all these questions will be addressed. So while the panelists are speaking, if you have questions, kindly drop them in the Q&A chat box, and my co-moderator, Ogechi Wodike, will get to it when it comes to the question and answer session. So let's begin. Mr. Eno Roberts, Mr. Ebi Roberts, sorry. Your book on social media has been widely acclaimed amongst legal professionals, especially those that want to delve into social media law practice and just gain more knowledge on social media practice as a legal practitioner in Nigeria. Can you share with us the key themes of your book and what inspired you to write it?
Okay. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me here to share my thoughts and or ideas on the book Social Media Law. I'm really grateful for the opportunity because it's not an opportunity that easily comes by, Indeed, I wrote the book Social Media Law, and the reason why I did that is because I believe that the legal community is actually advancing. We are not just in one place, we are moving from one place to the other, or from one spot to the other. And as we improve in our legal practice, there is also need for us to identify, emerging areas of law. There are a lot of, areas of law out there that people are here to actually explore. And I feel that the social media law is also one of those areas that people are really yet to look at. Social media law itself ordinarily is a branch of information technology law, because social media platforms are actually information technology inventions or innovations. So like I said earlier, the reason why I had to venture into this area is not just because I have the passion for information technology, but to also, make lawyers understand or identify these very important areas that they can actually, carve a niche for themselves or being their interest on or in. So this is actually the philosophy behind my writing, this book. So I'll just quickly share one or two things about, this book. Then, so that I believe that by the time I'm done, those who, of course, may be interested would, of course, pick, one or two areas or practice products that, social media law has actually given birth to. So let me start this way. What is information? Okay, so as we know, information in brief is basically the facts about a thing. It actually has to do with, the material fact about something, a knowledge. Everything about our life is about information. So we're having this webinar now, we are all talking, we are communicating, and we're sharing information. All of the speakers that spoke before me, said one or two things, and everything they said, are about facts. And they also shared information to us. And here I am also talking to you guys, and I'm also sharing information. So every single thing I said with word of the mouth or by parole, actually, is a material or a materials of facts or sets of facts. That's just a simple truth about the matter. So when we talk about information, we're also talking about content, because when we talk about material is content. Content as a word is not just limited to what you post on social media. Content is about the material you give, the information in that very thing you're giving out is the content itself. So content and information can be used interchangeably. Now, every information must be communicated. That's a fact. Like I said, life is about information. We are talking about human rights today. How do you know you have those rights? It's because you were informed. That information was communicated to you. So without you being informed, you cannot know that you have, those details as a person, and the need for you to know those things. So I will cite one Supreme Court authority, and that's the case of Abioye versus Ishmael. And there, permit me, I'll be doing, once in a while, I'll be doing, some readings, maybe some parts of the book to be read out, just to make some clarification. So there, the Supreme Court stated that the word communication means to share information with others. And that's why I told you that we cannot talk about information without communication, because every information needed to be communicated. Now, I've stated that, let's talk about the media, okay? Because when we talk about social media, we're talking about three keywords: social, media, and law. Now, let's start first with the media. Media summarily means, mass, summarily means the main means of mass communication. So when you talk about the media, you're talking about communicating to a group of people, or, en masse. You're reaching out to them. You're not just talking to one person. It's not a private discussion. You're communicating to many people, plenty of people. That's what mass communication is about. And mass communication, of course, has to do with the media. And of course, we have different forms of media. We have the print media, we have the broadcast media, and of course, we also have the internet. So what's the internet? I know some of us already have an idea of what the internet is all about. Now, this takes us to the next conversation, which is information technology. We always hear the term or the concept information technology. What is information technology? Information technology, you can say, are all of those technologies put together that help for the use, the storage, the creation, and otherwise of information for communication to be done, and also for conversation to begin. That's information technology. So all of the inventions, all of the technologies that are created to help the use, help for the storage, and help also for the dissemination of information is what we call information technology. So they are all scientific inventions, all right? So now we have the World Wide Web. We all know, when you go to your browser, you put www, then you put the name of the website you want to visit, and then .com, and then you send, and then you get to your destination. So the World Wide Web, you can take it to be the world like we have in the physical world today. The World Wide Web can be seen as the world that we have today. And then in the world, we have locations. So we have countries or nations. We have the United States of America. There's a destination for the United States. There's a destination for Nigeria. There's a destination also for Ghana and every other country. And also in those countries, or each of those countries, we also have, locations. For instance, if you want to go to a particular state, you must know where that state is located. You get to that state, and of course, you have to locate. You also need to know the address of where you're going to. So if you know the address, then the driver can easily take you to the place that you want to actually visit. That is how the world is organized. The same idea is also applicable in the internet. Okay, so what do I mean? I told us that the World Wide Web can be seen as the world, so the World Wide Web is the world there in the internet. And then, of course, we have locations. We have websites. Websites are like houses, are like houses or locations where you get information. So the internet is about information. There is no website that you visit today that is not giving you an information about something. If the website is the website of a company, when you visit that website, you'll be informed about that. Every detail about that company is there. At least some of the details are there, if not all of them. If you visit, let's say, the website of a law firm, you get informed about that law firm. And that's what I'm telling us, that everything about the internet is about what? Information. Now, the web, you can say, has evolved largely. Okay, so we started first with what we call the Web 1.0. And the Web 1.0 is what we describe as the read. So we're talking about a stage of the evolution of internet where people just go online and then get information, but they are not given the opportunity to contribute. They cannot generate their own information, or if they have an information to share, they are not expected to, or they cannot, disseminate or give other information. They just go read the information that is there on the internet or on the website, and then they go their way. So the Web 1.0 is known as what we call the read-only web. I repeat, read-only web. Then we have the Web 2.0, which is known as what? The read and write web. Read and write web. So what does that mean? Of course, it's self-explanatory. You do not just go to the internet or visit a website or a location in the internet and get an information. No, but you're also given the opportunity to also what? Generate your own content, share your own content, share your own information, and give it out, and get people to also what? Engage your content or engage your information. And that is why the social media inventions can be classified under what we call the read and write web. Now, read, of course, has to do with you consuming the information that is already there. Don't just limit read to just being, using the pen to write. No, that's not necessarily what it means in this context. Read means you can go to the website and then you get the information, you consume it. Then you who is consuming it, because the platform has already been created for you, you are also expected to take advantage of that platform, or those platforms that are being made available for you, if you want to also generate your own content. So social media platforms then fall under what we describe as what? The Web 2.0 technology. And what's social? Because I told us that for us to understand what social media law is all about, we must first understand what social means, what media is, and then what law is. I've explained to us what media is about, right? Social, ordinarily as a term, means the society. It's an adjective that means the society. Each time you hear the term or the concept social, we're talking about the society. Or you can say a community of people. So we're not talking about something about two persons just in the room. We're talking about something that is open to everybody. Okay, that's what social is all about. So when we talk about social media, of course, that should make you understand that since social is about the society, then social media is that media or those platforms, that gives the society the opportunity to be able to what? Get information. They get information in such a way that people are able to communicate to them. Everybody put together get this information, and the society is also giving the opportunity, or this community of people is also giving the opportunity to be able to also share their own content if they have any that they want to share out. You get, so that's what the social media is all about. Now, there are different definitions that I'm giving about the social media and all of that, but because of limited time, I may not delve into giving us these various definitions. But let's look at the forms of social media today. If you ask anybody, mention one form of social media, the first thing that the person will say is Facebook. I don't know if you can hear me, please, so that let it not be as if I'm talking just to myself. Are you there, please?
Yes, loud and clear. I can hear you. I hope others can hear. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. When we talk about forms of social media, if you ask anybody today, mention one form of social media, the first thing I believe the person will say is Facebook, Twitter. No, Twitter is not a form of social media. Facebook is not a form of social media. Neither is Telegram or any other social media platform out there. Those are simply platforms that can be classified under the forms, maybe one or two or even more of the forms of social media out there. So what are the forms of social media? We have different classifications. So permit me to just briefly read that, just get to educate us a little bit on that before we go further. I will read it out just as I stated it here in my book. So forms, page 29. Okay, so I mentioned here that what Kaplan Helen happens to be, authors that should I say the first set, one of the first set of authors that did the classification of forms of social media. So what did they do? They classified social media into 6 forms. Okay, they are one, the collaborative projects. Then of course, an example of the collaborative project is what we, for instance, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a form of social media. A lot of persons may not know, but it's a collaborative project. Wikipedia is not the only form of wiki we have there. We have other forms of wiki as well. Then blogs and microblogs. Blog is a form of social media. Blog is a form of social media or microblogs. And then we have Twitter as an example of a social media platform that falls under the form of social media we call microblog. Then we have content communities. A good example of content community is YouTube. Then, as according to Kaplan's classification, that's what I'm saying. And then we have social networking sites. Of course, Facebook is under it. And then visual games board, like World of Warcraft, and then social worlds. A good example is Social Life. Then we have a regulation in Nigeria, though it's limited, but it was issued or made by the National Information Technology Development Agency. And that regulation, of course, is what we know as a framework and guidelines for the use of social media platforms in public institutions. So there, social media was classified or divided into these different forms. One, social networks, web blogs, wikis, forums, microblogging, and multimedia sharing. There are other forms also, other classifications given by other persons and all of that, but I'm just using this as an example. So when you hear Twitter, when you hear Facebook, Twitter itself is not, like I said, a form of social media. It is a platform or a site under one of the forms of social media. Now, what are the features of social media? Of course, we can talk about community engagement, sharing, and all of that, and so on and so forth. A connection, or is it connectedness, and all of that. In all of those terms, describe the features or forms of features of social media rather. So I try to define what social media law is all about. Remember, I talked about social, I talked about media, and of course, we know what law is all about. So I don't need to, bother us on the definition of law. We already know what law is, but just briefly, law is that those set of rules, instruments, and all of that regulates the conduct of humans to ensure orderliness and all of that. You get. So that's what law in summary is all about. Everybody, like we all know. Okay, so I was told to share everything in a few minutes. I don't know, please, can you tell me rather how many minutes I have left? Because I was told I was supposed to make my presentation in 30 minutes, so I don't know. So,
yes,
but
yes, 30 minutes, yes.
So please keep on reminding me if my time is getting close, okay? So social media law, of course, was defined by different persons. The access of definition of social media in existing literature, and that is because it's a developing area, okay? But I try to, provide definition after taking into consideration all of the definitions that were given. And so how did I define social media? I defined it as couples of laws, whether civil, criminal, or hybrid, that govern the social media wing of the internet or cyberspace, and the internet or cyberspace as it affects social media. Like it encompasses all those case laws, principles, instruments, and regulations that govern the creation of social media Web 2.0 technologies the online presence of users, their content generation and content delivery, and general interactivity. One to another, either by way of information dissemination or conversation or communication, the protection of users' rights, or legal or human, against other users, social media platforms, and third parties. So I try to define social media, of course, as a set of rules and all of that regulate the presence of people on social media, how they are to generate their content and all of that and so on. Maybe when you get the book, possibly if you're interested, you get to get a feel of information that I offered in the book. So now we have to look at what social media governance is about. Social media governance, of course, like we already can perceive, meaning to know the regulatory framework as a whole, or that system that is put in place to regulate. We have what we call the internet governance, which has to do with the governance of the use of domain name on the internet. But basically, I classify forms of social media regulation in Nigeria into four groups or four parts. And the first is self-regulation. Self-regulation has to do with platform governance, that is to say, platform information, law of defamation, life and all of that, and so on and so forth. Advanced fraud and all of that. All those laws they are made up for the traditional regulation. But we have what we call the near subject matter regulation. The near subject matter regulation, of course, has to do with those group of laws, that it talks about information technology, or information technology practice. It does not directly deal on the social media matter, but it is implicational. Why? Because the fact that it deals with information technology practice automatically makes it part and parcel of the law that regulate, or the laws that regulate social media. So a good example is the National Information Technology Development Agency Act, and of course the Cybercrime Act and all of that. Then we have what we call subject matter regulation. Currently, as we speak, we are yet to have an act of the National Assembly on Social Media Act. But like I even argued, it is very difficult for you to even have an act that directly deals on social media, as a subject matter, because social media as a subject matter is very broad. You can only have bits and pieces of laws, which is the body that is given the responsibility to regulate information technology practice. Did a law, a subsidiary legislation, or issued a subsidiary legislation pursuant to these powers under the NIDA Act to make a law that we call the NIDA Code of Practice. And that NIDA Code of Practice, of course, make mention of different things like content regulation and all of that, the kind of content is to post, how you have to post them and all of that, obligations of platforms and all of that. So let's quickly run through what I titled registration of social media platforms. So social media platforms do not just come into being just like that. Facebook, for instance, passed through a process. For instance, we have what we call social media name registration, because every social media platform has a name. Facebook is the name of platform called Facebook. We have Twitter and all of that. How were they registered? Because if you go to the website, you type www.facebook.com, it directly takes you to where Facebook is located. All the persons there and all of that, you engage with them and so on. So Facebook is the name. How do you register that name called Facebook? Now, I told us before that we have what we call internet governance. Internet governance has to do with the registration of domain name. Every name you see on the internet is known as a domain name. How do you register it? In Nigeria, we have a system in place for the registration of domain name, especially if your domain name is expected to have what we call the country code, NG. So sometimes you see some websites that goes like www. Let's say, for instance, nba.com.ng. NG is there, NG means Nigeria. So we have NIRA, which is a body, that was created should I say, registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. And that body works directly with NIDA for the regulation or registration of domain name with the country code NG. So if you are creating a social media platform or you want to register a blog or anything, you can make use of the country code domain name, by registering through NIDA, and they have NIRA rather, and they have the registrars and all of that, people that have the responsibility to do so. It's a whole lot of process. Of course, we also have the registration of social media apps. Of course, apps also have the registration process and all of that. For instance, if you want to, you developed an app and you want to, a social media app, and you want to launch it in let's say Apple Play Store and all of that, there are processes also. We can read it up and then know how you expected to do that. And then we also have social media trademark registration, because every social media platform has a trade name. Of course, a good lot of them. Facebook already has a trade name. For instance, FB is a the trademark for Facebook. Okay, so Of course, how do you register a trademark? Madame spoke earlier that she's an intellectual property lawyer. Of course, she knows the process. So the same process that is applicable for the registration of every other trademark is what is also applicable for the registration of social media trademark. And of course, we also have social media patents, because we have products that people have invented that helps for the functioning, the quick functioning and well functioning of social media platforms. So the registration process of patent, as it is even in Nigeria, is also applicable also in registering social media patents. They will also have what we call large service platform registration. If you look at the NIDA Code of Practice, the NIDA Code of Practice expressly mentions how you are expected to register a service platform, a social media platform that is considered a large service platform. And of course, under the law, if you have up to 1 million registered users, you are recognized under the law as a large service platform and a large service platform. So we have these laws already in place. It's a subsidiary legislation, by the way, but many persons out there do not know that such law actually exists. Now, use of social media, briefly, let me just round off because of time. Use of social media for legal practitioners. The speakers have already tried to enlighten us a bit about how you can use social media platform as a lawyer for, and then the ethical considerations and all of that. But I come to understand also that a lot of persons mistake, the application of social media to law to mean the application of law to social media. They're not one and the same. So let's differentiate one thing first. First thing first, rather, the application of law to the application of information technology to law. By the way, the application of information technology to law, is a broader place where we have the application of social media to law as part and parcel of. So what do I mean? Let's talk a little about the application of IT to law. That's what a lot of them have spoken about. We have e-reporting, for instance, e-law reporting. Today we have e-service. You can start your process electronically. You can also file electronically. All of these are the application of information technology to law. If that is not social media law. We also have application of social media to law, the application of social media to law. This takes us to how you can use social media to enhance the practice of the law, and also how you can use social media, for the legal profession. We talk about blogging and all of that, blogging, a legal blogging, a lawyer can have a legal blog, make posts and all of that. You can talk about your professional service and all of that. This is the application of social media to law. It is not the same with what we call the application of law to social media. We'll talk about the application of law to social media. We're talking about the regulation of social media, and this is where we have social media law now. I've told you about self-regulation. I've told you about subject matter regulation. I've told you about near subject matter regulation. I've also told you about traditional regulation. Now, where are the practice areas, or what are the practice areas that lawyers can look at? One, I'm already done, almost getting done, so please just permit me, or just for me to round up quickly. So we have some areas of highlighted. Social media contracts. This has to do with legal drafting. Then we have social media platforms registration. These are another area as a lawyer you can look at. Social media subject matter litigations is another practice area, practice folder that lawyers can look at. Then ADRO on social media disputes. And then lastly, not the last actually, because we have other areas, but just for the purpose of the discussion, we can look at social media law consultancy. So let's just briefly run through them while I round up, okay, because I don't have time. Let's look at social media contracts, for instance. We are talking about legal draft. Of course, you know what contracts are about. A contract is about offer, acceptance, and all of that. Consideration of those different elements of contract and all of it. We have the foundational knowledge about contract and drafting of contract. But when we talk about social media contract, we're talking about special forms of contracts. One of the examples out there of social media contract is terms of service. A lot of people don't know that when they sign up to a social media platform, maybe you don't have a Facebook account and you're creating one, people don't know that they're actually entering into a contract with Facebook or Twitter or any other platform, as the case may be. You're entering into a contract with them. You sign up their terms of service. How do you draft the terms of service? What are the things you have to consider in drafting the terms of service? We have, for instance, for Facebook, we have statement of rights and responsibilities. That's the kind of terms of service, contract that people enter into with Facebook. How do you draft it? Check it out. There are ways you can go about the drafting. A lawyer can specialize in drafting these agreements. If you understand how these agreements are being drafted, any new social media platform that is about to be floated or launched can reach out to you if you're an expert in drafting those forms of agreement, and you can specialize in that area, as well as licensing agreements, and so on. Privacy policies, boilerplate, there's what they call boilerplate terms as well, and all of that. You know, I also talked about social media gaming contracts, okay, development agreements, distribution agreements, and all of that. You learn how to draft these are different forms of agreement, and your services may be needed if you're an expert in all of that. Then you also have other forms of agreement as well, for other forms of agreement like influence. I talked about different forms of contracts, and then let's go straight to influencers agreement, for instance. Influencers agreement also is another clauses or terms that you have to consider in drafting such an agreement. What are those things? You have to look them up. You have to understand the right, as well as, you know, the laws that are applicable in advertising a product, because we have what to call we have what to call the I think the law on advertisement currently, it was I think is the Advertisement Regulatory Council of Nigeria also. Before it was a practitioner's law, but now it is, currently the argument is that this law that is in place now makes provision for digital advertisement and all of that. So you have to look at the laws that are applicable, the rights and liabilities of influencers is influencing or the advertisement of his product and all of that. Remember that causes of action that are identified also there. For instance, negligence, false advertisement. If somebody, an influencer, you know, influences a product and that product is actually not genuine, how do you know, institute the action? These are some of the things that you have to look at. So clauses on negligence, liability rights, and all of that are things you have to look at, you know, in drafting such agreement. Then we also have consent, the data consent contract, you know, because social media is about the sharing of data and all of that. What are the laws applicable, you know, and all of that? You have to look them up. They also have social media consultancy agreement. You can be a social media lawyer expert and you just give, you know, advice to people, consultancy, you know, advice and all of that to people who need your service without necessarily going to court. So that's also another aspect that we can look at. And then also we have social media cookies agreement. You know, we have what we call social media cookies. You know, cookies are out there. You know, when you go to the website, it will tell you accept cookies. You accept partially. What are those cookies? What do they stand for? Okay. Then if you want to draft an agreement for it to be hosted on a social media website or any other website, how do you draft those agreements? So social media cookies agreement are out there as well as cybersecurity agreements and all of that. Because social media, we have a very strong cybersecurity measure that is put in place for a social media platform to operate very well. So things you have to note, I mentioned that you must know the relevant terms, the jargons applicable, specific clauses, rights and liabilities, and the applicable laws to be able to draft these contracts very well. Now, lastly, I talked about social media platforms registration. What are you going to look at? Domain name registration practice. As a lawyer, you can venture into the registration of domain name, okay, and give services also in that aspect. Then have the trademark practice as well for social media platforms. But you can venture into the aspect of the social media name registration. Then, of course, social media registration and large service platform registration. And lastly, we have to look at social media, social media subject matter litigation. You are representing a social media, social media platform. You have to know the substantive law very well. You have to identify the cause of action. For instance, is it cyber defamation? Is it cyber stalking? Or is it any other civil wrong or a criminal offense? Then you also have to know the court that has jurisdiction. In fact, as we speak currently now, there are laws in place. There are case laws that are now being developed, even by the Court of Appeal, talking about the issue of jurisdiction. The issue of jurisdiction. How do you institute a defamation suit against somebody? For instance, I post a defamatory statement online against Mr. A, and Mr. A receives it at, let's say, in Lagos. I post it, and he receives it there in Lagos. And then another person, let's say in the US, or let's say in Ingu, diagnosis. What is the court that has the jurisdiction? These are some of the things you have to look at. Select your parties carefully, because you don't just sue. You can bring in Google, for instance, as a party, because Google, how does Google actually play a strong role in social media litigation? It is because Google, through their search engine and all of that, index this website, including social media websites. So if a defamatory statement is made on a social media platform, and that platform or the website of that platform is being indexed by Google, okay, and you're seeking for an order, what kind of orders do you seek? Of course, you seek for an order, of course, at the end of the day, for that, defamatory content or whatsoever to be kicked out, for it no longer to be found on the internet when they search it online. Okay, so you remember you cannot make an order against the party, against somebody rather that is not the party. So you have to bring in Google as a party. You have to select your word parties carefully. You also be careful. You also have to be careful when also bringing suit against subsidiary companies or subsidiaries to social media platforms and all of that. Know the kind of remedy you ask for. And of course, you can also consider ADR on social media, which is also very, very important. It's an area you can also look at, ADR on social media. So for instance, domain name disputes, okay? Because somebody can come and say, this social media platform stole my domain name. He has infringed on my trademark. I am not happy, I want to sue. You can decide to say, okay, let's not go through the court route. Let's pass through, the NARA procedure. And the NARA procedure is an ADRO procedure or mechanism. Then we have ICANN. The ICANN, of course, is another procedure that you can look at. Of course, one of the certified agents or agencies is the WIPO Arbitration and Mediation Center. Then we also have ADRO clauses in agreement, platform appeal mechanism that made available by platform. Gentlemen, even though we have ladies here, but permit me to use the term ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you once more again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you. The time is very short, but I just hope I've done justice to some of the things. Social media law is so broad, but I just have to restrict myself because of time. Thank you once again, and God bless you all.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Robert Ebi. I can see questions. Where can they get your book? In the comment section? Maybe you just add that, because this 30 minutes is not enough to digest the content of your book, and it seems so interesting. I think one key thing that I picked was when you started, you said the legal community is advancing, and there's a need to identify emerging areas of law. And no doubt, social media law practice is one area that is emerging in law, and not so many people and so many lawyers know how to navigate that. I don't think I've seen this conversation anywhere. I think the MBA Women's Forum is the first that has brought this conversation, and I'm glad that it's happening for the female lawyers. So I believe that at the end of this webinar, we're going to see more female lawyers championing their legal practice on social media, and it will be all thanks to the MBA Women's Forum. So this is really great. So we have some questions coming in. Please put them, don't send them directly to me, just put them in the chat box. My co-moderator will collate those.
I tried so hard